Welcome to a Healthy Living video blog, episode number 77. You're watching us at workoutmaster.com. This is Ruben.
It's Aram.
Today we're going to talk about bench pressing. I find it's very disturbing that majority of males in this country love to bench press. I gotta admit though, I was one of them until I learned my lesson, and today's episode is about just breaking it down, and hopefully some people are going to take it into consideration that bench press does absolutely nothing but hurting yourself. Let's tear this apart, Mr. Serrano.
Well, do I have anything in particular against bench press? Not if it's properly executed. Let's make that as a statement first. There's some people that will compete as powerlifters, and bench press is one of the modalities that they have to perform in a competition. So obviously, you know, it has a place in the functional realm of sports.
I don't think it has any functional realm at all.
Well, if you're a powerlifter, you have to bench press. You have to deadlift and you have to squat.
As a powerlifter, you have to bench press?
Yes.
Okay.
Fine. In regards, for example, of bench pressing for other sports, I don't see, you know, any functional carryover whatsoever. You might say that you might use the exercise itself to add some muscle mass to your upper body, which then you can put into a different perspective to use it, you know, for pushing and stuff like that. But there's one caveat to that fallacy, is that many athletes and many lay people that visit gyms, they often get hurt, you know, while they're actually bench pressing due to different and various reasons. Number one, and I think is the one that causes the most amount of injuries, is ego. And I say that very clear, ego, E-G-O, because most guys, you know, they measure, you know, their manhood by how much they can bench press. Yeah. And when they're gonna boast and, you know, talk BS about how strong they are or what they used to do, blah, 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 they say, you know, they always mention I can bench press such and such for X amount of repetitions or whatever. Which to that, I always say the same thing. You know, as we get older, we used to be stronger and we used to be faster. So the older you get, the faster and the stronger you used to be, if you get that. And when it comes to bench pressing, I'm gonna tell you one thing. I love the exercise because I think there's very few exercises out there that have made me as much money as bench pressing is. Because I happen to have rehabilitated a lot of people that have damaged their shoulders bench pressing, and they have become my clients, and I've charged them a shitload of money to get them on the... I
actually hurt myself bench pressing also, and I happened to rehabilitate myself. Without his help, I rehabilitated myself. This is the thing I have with a bench press. If you have any kind of shoulder issues, stay away from bench press. That's number one thing. If you ever do bench press, it's very important to do it properly. Otherwise, you can create a lot of shoulder problems again. Ruben, you want to go ahead and show what's the proper way to do bench press?
Alright, so we're going to kind of change the dynamics of what we're going to do here. So you might see me move and I might look a little, I'm getting like bigger and bigger and bigger. This is one thing that I typically teach people. When you bench pressing and you're laying in a bench, what happens is, you know, according to the thickness of your rib cage, is going to dictate how far you're going to bring your arms back or not. So you can see right now that my elbows, they will be making a straight line across and parallel. And this is as far back as I can safely actually bring the bar down in the case that I had a barbell in my hands. And I'm about 2.5 inches from the bar to my chest.
Touching the chest.
You know, so you see the distance between like where my thumb is right now and my chest, that's about how much I will have to stay away from it. Mm-hmm. If I was to drop the bar literally to my chest, I will be hyperextending my shoulder, which what it's gonna cause is, you know, a lot of elasticity of the anterior capsule of the shoulder, destabilizes the shoulder, it stretches the tendons and the ligaments, and what happens there is that the shoulder becomes weaker and weaker as you add in more and more weight. Eventually you're going to create a tear somewhere, you're going to either, you know, rip a tendon, you're going to create, you know, those ligaments to become more and more lax, they're stretched out, and then they don't return to the original position, of course not. And what happens is that you'll get hurt. Eventually you're going to have all kinds of pain, to the point that you might actually dislocate your shoulder. And even later on, you know, just by adopting a new position so the shoulder doesn't hurt, you'll end up trashing your elbow, your wrist, or your neck for that matter. Okay. So it's very important to do that.
Thank you.
In the case that people do actually bench pressing with a ball, with a stability ball, like you see more and more people nowadays doing it, make sure that that ball is somewhat deflated. It's very important that the ball is not like a solid, you know, ball that doesn't
like a rock.
Like a rock, absolutely. Because what's going to happen? Yes, the shape of the ball is going to allow you and permit you to bring your elbows way far back, which you're doing the same problem that you do typically when you're in a bench press, because bench press is usually about 12 inches, you know, thick or wide per se. And so never drop the bar to your chest unless you have a chest the size of a Viking, you know, and don't allow your elbows, you know, to come far down, resting your tricep resting to the back of the ball when you're doing it, because you're gonna make the same mistake, and that's how people typically get hurt.
Okay. I generally recommend that if you go ahead and start doing bench press, use the dumbbells instead of the bar. I find the dumbbells give you a little bit more of a thing to work at, stability of the shoulder. It uses both sides of your left and right. Besides that,
independently, yes, absolutely.
Independently, yeah. Another thing that I would recommend, I would recommend to substitute bench press for another chest exercise, like a push-up or any kind of a pushing movement. Definitely, if you do any kind of pushing movement, you got to do some kind of pulling movement. So if you do bench press or push-up, you got to incorporate a lot of pulling movements, so you build up the opposite muscles to your chest muscle. Because if you have too strong of a chest, it's going to roll your shoulders in, it's going to get your head forward, and it's aesthetically and biomechanically a very poor posture.
Right, you begin to develop what's known as the upper cross syndrome, and the remedy to that is to, you know, give equal or as much work, or sometimes even more, to the, you know, to your medial lower trapezius and the rhomboids, so you create more balance in the body. Because one thing that you typically see the guys at the gym that do a lot of bench pressing is that the shoulders are medially rotated, their arms are medially rotated, and they look that they're only a few inches away from just dragging their knuckles on the floor.
Okay. And another thing I would recommend is if you do bench press again, try to do it in a semi-unstable environment. Whatever is going to be comfortable for you, not something excessive obviously, but something like a stability ball where you actually have to work your whole body, and then you cannot just lay down and you know, extend your back and do all kinds of crazy things that people do when they're laying down on just a regular bench press.
Right. What happens with benches or any other implement that you lean against is that it's going to shut off the stabilizers of your trunk. So then that afford that you kind of, or believe that you're actually building up to be able to push forward, is not going to be there, because at the same time the stabilizers of the trunk, they completely shut off. So it doesn't really work. I'll give you one more thing that has helped, you know, with some people that I have rehabilitated from injuries to bench press. For the first few months, I don't let them do any other bench press. If it's ingrained in their head that there has to be that they have to do bench press, it's actually to bench press from the floor. So, you know, according to the length of the forearms, when they go in that position to push forward, will only allow them to go with the elbows back as far as, you know, where the floor stops them. So in some instances, they have to raise the weight a little bit by means of adding, like, you know, one of the rises from a step, you know, into the bar, so they can push from that direction. Okay. And they're gonna be realizing that they cannot push, you know, bring the elbows far back and, you know, overstretch the capsule of the shoulder and further damage whatever they have, you know, been complaining about.
Absolutely. I don't think doing a bench press increases your chest muscle so much that it is really no substitute for it. I believe there's a lot of exercises that you can do to increase your chest size. Just go and pick out of thousands of different exercises besides the bench press. I would recommend the bench press, as Ruben says, only if you need to do a bench press in competition or whatever else you do. Personally, I'm not a big fan. I wouldn't recommend anybody for... I stopped doing it for years. My chest just stays the same, as big as it can.
Like I said, bench press is not ideal muscle to build your chest to begin with, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. It does more work on the anterior part of the deltoid and does more work on the tricep than anything else. So as far as the contraction that you get in the pectoralis major is minimal.
Okay. You have anything else?
I think that's it.
Alright guys, stay away from bench press. I think that's pretty much clear. And remember, your future looks better already. Thank you for watching, and until next time.